Good afternoon, one and all. Myself, Dr. Vrushali Kute, working as an assistant professor in Balbhim Arts, Science and Commerce College, Bid, Maharashtra. Today I am delivering my seminar on the topic of role of women in the scenario of political transformation. On the occasion of refresher course in gender sensitization organized by UGC HRDC Center, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University, Aurangabad. So, into the first slide, context. In context, the term political participation has a very wide meaning. It is not only related to right to vote but simultaneously relates to participation in decision making process, political activism, political consciousness, etc. Women in India participated in voting, run for public offices and political parties at lower levels more than men. Political activism and voting are the strongest area of women's political participation. To combat gender inequality in politics, the Indian government has instituted reservation for seats in local governments. Women, into the second point, we cover that women turnout during India's parliamentary general election was 65.63% compared to the 67.9%. Turnout for men. India ranked 20th from the bottom in terms of representation of women in parliament. Women have held the post of President and Prime Minister in India as well as Chief Minister in various states. Indian voters have elected women to numerous states' legislative assemblies and national parliament for many decades. Into the next slide, constitutional rights of women. The Constitution of India establishes a parliamentary state system of government and guarantees its citizen the right to be elected. Freedom of speech, freedom to assemble, from and form association and vote. The Constitution of India attempts to remove gender inequalities by banning discrimination based on sex and class, prohibiting human trafficking and forced labor, and reserving elected positions for men. To the next point, the Government of India directed states and local governments to promote equality by class and gender, including equal pay and rights to work and education, and raising the standard of living. Women were substantially involved in the Indian independence movement in the early 20th century and advocated for independence from Britain. Independence brought gender equality in the form of constitutional rights, but historically women's political participation has remained low. Into the next slide of expanding participation. Balanced political participation and power sharing between women and men in decision making is the internationally agreed target set in the Beijing Declaration and platform for action. Most countries in the world have not achieved gender balance, and few have set or met ambitious target for gender party, that is 50-50. There is established, into the second point, there is established and growing evidence of that women's leadership in political decision making processes improves them For example, research on panchayats, that is local councils. In India, discovered that the number of drinking water projects in areas with women lead councils was 62% higher than in those with men lead councils. In Norway, a direct causal relationship between the presence of women in municipal councils and childcare coverage was found. To the next point, women demonstrate political leadership by working across party lines through parliamentary women's causes, even in the most political combative environments, and by championing issues of gender equality such as elimination of gender based violence, parental leave and child care, pensions, gender equality, laws and electoral reform. Into the next slide, beating the odds in the terms of upliftment, facts and figures. The rise of Indian women as panchayat leaders is as a spectacular achievement given that India has one of the worst record with respect of the way it treats the female sex. Malnourished, suppressed, uneducated, violated, and discriminated against Indian women have the odds stacked against them. Even birth is a hurdle. Thanks to widespread female infanticides in rural areas, but nor for every Saroja. Saroja is the one of the example we are taken here. Saroja who will marry at 13 because her mother as a devdasi prostitute in Chikanhalli village, Karnataka, cannot afford to pay a dowry. But there is a Lakshmi who is serving her second term as a panchayat leader. Another example of Lakshmi who serving second term as a panchayat leader in Kadinnamala village in Kotagiri district. There is a Kechamma also, the third one example of woman who is a political participated. There is a Kechamma of Nere Leke Gram Panchayat in rural Karnataka who survived life threats during her 2 terms as council leader. An illiterate Dalit, Kechamma could not read and write. Alright, but perhaps as a result of her personal travels, she made sure that she brought education to all the children in her village, including a disabled child. In the same context, the facts and figures, I take another example of Geeta, who is a 32 years old, would be a typical candidate, but an orphan at the age of 3, and Geeta was raised by her elder sister. She didn't go to school and married with a alcoholic person when she was a teenager. Today she works as a housemaid in Bangalore to feed her family of 4. Her husband, her 2 sons and Geeta's life goal is to educate her 2 sons. But she lives in a cycle of debt borrowing to repay the past loans, to make annual school repayments for her sons, to cover family events like wedding and every time someone in the family falls sick. Geeta, it so happens, works as a housemaid. 2 years ago, Geeta heard about Janalakshmi Microfinance company who give the microfinance to the women. Geeta borrowed 30,000 rupees as a loan, near about $600, with the understanding that they would help each other not default on interest payments and take turns repaying the benefits of the loan. Each group has a leader who guarantees the interest payments to the microfinance institution, and in turn, the leader invests woman she trusts into the group so that they can borrow larger amounts. For now, Gita's microfinance loan is only allowing her to pay back her previous debts. But she dreams of the day when she can borrow enough money for the down payment of for her loan for her home. Reforming education, into the next slide, reforming education through political leadership by the women through emancipation. Panchayat. Women leaders have especially especially active in bringing education to their villages, even though they are frequently held hostages by caste politics and courts. Rural education is the uh, quagmire and of poor policies that nobody in government seems to have the will to change. The recent Administrative Reforms Commission repeats a long standing recommendation that the selection of school teachers in rural schools be delegated to each panchayat instead of making in states wide and therefore subject to caste based selection. Deploying state selected teachers to rural schools in areas where they have no caste based affiliation makes it a losing proportion from the gate to go, according to some experts. Detractors contain that delegating teacher selection to each panchayat will make it subject to bribes and corruption. But as one official in the Administrative Reforms Commission put it, small scale rural corruption with some accountability is better than large scale corruption with no local accountability. So, into the last conclusion point, I make here some conclusions. As far as concern about this matter related to women and their role in political ambit is more or less in progressive. Notwithstanding, there is a required amount of participation in respect of leading in the matters of governance should be extensive manner. Education and microfinance are two ways and means through women's ratio can be upscale to certain limit. Thank you very much.